fan. And any barmaid can be a star maid if she dances with or without a plan. Hooray for Hollywood, where you're terrific if you're even good. Where anyone at all from Shirley Temple to Amy Semple is equally understood. Go out and try your luck, you may be Donald Duck. Hooray for Hollywood.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to a Radulich and Broadcasting premiere podcast, Damn You Hollywood. And here's your host, Robert Winfree. Yay!
Yay! It's us here to talk about, well,
The end of the Marvel Cinematic Universe as we know it. And I feel fine.
I mean, to be fair, the Marvel Cinematic Universe ended as we knew it at the end of Endgame, which was kind of the point.
It's in the title, that's a hint.
So that tonight, ladies and gentlemen, there's not really a kind way to say this. We're going to talk about the Eternals and probably set it on fire. So we'll be discussing the ins and outs and all of that about Marvel's sad attempt at adapting this particular IP in this particular format. Mistakes were made. But joining us on the discussion, in addition to my trusty Ed McMahon, my trusty, I don't know, who else filled that role in late night talk shows? The only one I remember off the top of my head is Jeff the Robot from...
Didn't, what do you call it? Didn't Jay Leno have a guy? Maybe the Paul Schaefer, maybe? Was the leader of the band. And a bad mother in his own right.
Sure. Anyway, Mark Radulich, my usual partner in crime. Joining us on this particular episode, we also have Alexis Hejna from Honeysuckle Rose Creations.
Can we get this over and done with?
That's what she said. That is what she said. That works on 2 levels.
It works on half a level, is how that works, Mark. When you're that literal, you don't even get full credit.
Oh.
And from our Canadian contingent, David Wright.
Hi, everybody.
Representing Alpha Flight lovers everywhere. Hi, Chris Bailey.
All right, so do we want to do the gag just off the top and get it over with, or not?
No. Let's get on with this.
Oh, say, keeping in the theme, shouldn't he technically be the Karun to your Kingo?
I don't know what any of those things are. It sounds like a disease you get in an alley with a hooker.
No, it's a very specific reference to this movie.
Yeah, I was going to say, considering, Mark, that you enjoyed this movie, I thought you would get the joke.
I don't remember character names. I don't pay that close attention. It's taken by so many vistas. No, we're going to just go right past the preamble discussion of this thing and jump right into the plot synopsis because here's the thing. There's a lot to talk about with this movie. Not all of us are going to agree on it, so there's going to be a bit of a back and forth discussion. Alexis and I kind of had a rough draft version of this Sunday night when we recorded with the MCU's Bleeding Edge, hosted by Jeff Slubadum. With that being said, there's also a lot to talk about, digest, dig through in terms of the money, not the money specifically, but sort of the editorial propaganda that's been coming out of Variety and a few other places. So, I mean, it's one of those deals where there's so much about the film that isn't about the film we have to go into. I don't want to get into like, well, when did you read your first Eternals? Nobody cares. Nobody did.
That's really true. No, this is not an IP that has a tremendous amount of publication. Like, it doesn't move a lot of merchandise. For the record, I am from now on referring to Variety as the PR wing of the Disney empire.
I gotta dig. I want to see if they actually do own Variety through like a series of shell companies.
By the way, Mark, I'm agreeing with Chuck here. Where did you find that picture you used on Facebook for our Eternals post? It really does look like a bootleg T-shirt.
I don't know. I did a Google search, and that's what I came up with.
Because none of the characters have the right hairstyles or wearing the right colors. This was clearly a fan-made project.
You think so? Oh, in that case, I need to find a different picture.
Icarus is wearing red, and Angelina Jolie has brown hair in this.
I don't pay attention to details.
You're podcast boss. You need to pay a little more attention to these kind of things, okay? Our social media image is kind of all we have.
All right.
Lord knows we can't rely on the talent on this network.
I will find a better picture. Robert will then get into the plot synopsis. Go.
As Mark does that. All right. So, millions of years ago, in the beginning, there was nothing. And then, bang, 6 singularities. But before even that...
For when the Earth was created, this has made a lot of people unhappy and has widely been considered a bad move.
There was a man named Jack Kirby, and he was roundly and soundly ripped off by Stan Lee. And he became upset with this. He moved to DC, where he created the New Gods, a popular spin-off franchise. He came back to Marvel and ripped himself off and created the Eternals. The end. Sorry, that's too much behind-the-scenes stuff. So...
No, but that works for this show.
It really does. Back before the 6 singularities that would spawn the Infinity Stones, there existed only the Celestials, who were responsible for the creation of all things. They said, "Let there be light." And they have servants. It's a category of people called the Eternals, who do their bidding. We're introduced to a series of the Eternals. Specifically, Ajax, Circe, Icarus, Kingo, Sprite, Fastus, Makari, Drew, Gilgamesh, Thena, and a partridge in a pear tree. They are sent to Earth back in the year 5000 BC, give or take, to protect the budding humanity from the Deviants, this group of bizarre creatures that only the Eternals can fight. The Eternals then spend a great deal of time doing so. They also kind of usher civilization along, making a bit of a... These people are worse at following the Prime Directive than the crew of the Starship Enterprise is. Like, no, don't interfere in humanity's development and their conflicts, but then in the same time, here, I will create the plow for you instead of the steam engine back in the year, 5000 BC, give or take. The Eternals kill off, allegedly, the last of the Deviants in the 1500s. Right about the same time, they're all becoming horribly disenfranchised or disillusioned with the violence inherent in the human condition.
And also getting sick and tired of listening to the Celestials, order of not to interfere, because they're like, these people are being idiots, and we can fix this if you let us.
Yes, because nothing quite goes that way, like mind control tyranny. And bear in mind, also, by the way, you sanctimonious jackasses, the Eternals, not you people. Oh no, this isn't war. This is a genocide. You presided over Babylon. You know what kind of messed up stuff went on there? You hypocrites. They all break up. They've killed all the Deviants. They're just waiting to be turned to their home planet of Olympia, which the Celestial will take them back to, and from thence to whatever else they're going to do after this. A lot of time passes. We arrive at the present day, where we meet Circe. This is all interspersed via flashbacks, so I'm going a bit more chronologically for that part at least. We meet Circe and Sprite. They're living together in London. They're attacked by a deviant. Icarus shows up. Sorry, Homelander's an interesting character. Icarus, not so much.
Wait, what's the one in Jupiter's Landing? I keep doing that.
Jupiter Ascending.
No idea. Never seen that piece of crap.
Jupiter's Legacy. You did. We spent 3 hours talking about it.
Oh, no, Jupiter's Legacy. Metro Man.
Nope.
The Utopian.
That's it. Yeah. So
there we go.
Here, I'll set you up again. So what happens in London?
So the Utopian shows up, and Josh Duhamel's like, "Please, I need a job."
Yeah. So there's a woman named Circe living in London who is dating Jon Snow. Then her ex-boyfriend Robb Stark shows up, all to the music of Ramin Djawadi.
Would you please stop? I have jokes about that in a minute or two.
Not our fault that everything is so written on the wall. It's blatantly obvious.
It's really true. So
I'm sorry. Did any of us not make a freaking Winter is Coming joke when Icarus and Dane meet up for the first time in London? It's too obvious. It's too freaking obvious not to make the joke.
Yeah, I tend to imagine it was just the elder Stark looking at his bastard brother and going, "You really turned down the crown so the cripple could have it," and just disappointed everybody all over again? Really? But look, everyone crickets the ending of Game of Thrones. We all know.
I'm starting to wish I'd gotten alcohol before we started this show.
Mark certainly did. So Icarus shows up. They fight off this particular deviant, but don't kill it. It escapes. They decide that if the deviants have returned, we must get the rest of the team together. So they go find Ajax, the leader of the Eternals. She's living in South Dakota, but sadness, she's dead. Aw.
Aw. Poor sexy Salma Hayek.
Would have been so much sadder if we actually got to know her at all.
Well, I don't
in any
know
part
her.
of this movie.
Salma Hayek's very pretty. I don't need to know her.
Why are you like this, Mark?
Because he and Comer have already made a handful of these jokes when they reviewed something else with her in it.
I believe it was From Dusk Till Dawn.
Wouldn't
Almost
surprise
certainly.
me.
Oh, and the whole Mexico trilogy.
She is in all of those. That's true. Well,
No,
only
2
a
out of 3.
flashback in
She's
one
in
of
2
them.
out of 3, yeah.
Oh yeah, she's not even in.
She's
Sorry.
not in that.
I always forget El Mariachi.
Yeah, El Mariachi
Anyway.
did not have the budget for Salma Hayek.
No, it
She
did.
has a budget for a lot of things.
Or
That's-
Antonio Banderas for that.
That might
matter.
have been shot on my yearly salary. But anyway, so Loki.
Anyway, so they head to South Dakota. They find the body of Ajax. Sadness, but the little glowing orb in the center of Ajax that tries to make her a real girl exits her corpse and embeds itself in Cersei, anointing her as the new leader of the Eternals. From there, they head to
Australia to meet up.
Hang on. First,
Okay, fine.
Cersei gets to talk with a resident Celestial Ereshkigal, who gives her a little bit of the backstory about the Deviants, what he created them to do, what the Eternals are, and what's actually going on here. What's actually going on here is the Deviants exist to be sent to planets to wipe out dominant forms of life to allow intelligent life to grow. But he screwed up when he made them. They could evolve. They became stronger. It was a problem, so he created the Eternals, a race of fabricated beings. They're basically the Vision in that particular respect.
Alien robots.
They're synthetic beings.
For the record, you're jumping ahead. They meet
A
up
little
with
bit,
Kingo, Gilgamesh, and Thena before this. Although, again, who cares?
Yeah, they do, don't they? All right, whatever.
Yeah, they meet up with a bunch of other Eternals, and then we get the exposition as to what they're really all about.
And then we find out how there's so much more interesting characters, and we're sitting there going, why can't we spend time with these people?
You're not wrong. So they head to Australia because they need to collect Gilgamesh and Thena. They do so without too much problem. From there they head to India, where they meet up with Kingo, who has become a Bollywood actor. Very briefly, Gilgamesh and Thena live together in the Australian outback because Thena has begun to suffer from the mad something.
I think it was called Mad Worry.
Something like that.
It doesn't help that, frankly, at least half the Eternals have different accents, and it's great that you were very inclusive in the casting for this, and I really did like that we had a variety of so many different kinds of people playing these characters. But when you have that many different accents saying the same thing different ways, it can get a little confusing over what the hell the correct pronunciation is.
You are not lying. We also Kingo's cameraman and movie producer also tags along for comic relief, so he's there. Gilgamesh and Thena were living together because Thena's begun to suffering from this disease that makes her unstable. She begins attacking people. It's the inability of her brain to process all of her memories, and the only way to fix it is to wipe her mind clean, which Ajax offers to do. They all decide no, because then Thena wouldn't be Thena. And Gilgamesh says, I'm the only one here strong enough to really kind of deal with her, so I'll take care of her. You guys don't worry about it. So they go collect her. They go collect Kingo. Then we get kind of the realization of what's actually going on here. The existence of intelligent life is largely, not entirely, but largely a product of birthing Celestials. The Celestials are these, again, giant beings that create stars and galaxies and all this fun stuff. They're responsible for the continuation of life in the universe, because without them, the ever-expanding universe would eventually reach what is a real phenomena, theoretically, the heat death of the universe. enough Celestials means they can keep expanding life and warmth out to prevent the death of all things. Kind of a good thing. But for a Celestial to be born, part of their gestation process is they exist in the cores of planets, and the planets have to have enough intelligent life to sustain them through their gestation period. When they burst forth, the planet is annihilated, and the Celestial goes on to create more galaxies. We then get a crappy version of a moral quandary about this, but I left out the most repetitive part, but I'll get to that in a second. They decide that in order to try and stop this, at least temporarily, and save the people of Earth, they need the help of Droog.
Isn't it Druig?
Whatever. Look, it's Droog because I wanted Malcolm McDowell to be here.
Yeah, so as soon as you said that, I started having Clockwork Orange.
That was deliberate on my part.
Ties Tiamat to a chair, the whole deal.
So they head to the Amazon jungle where they find Droog viciously mind-controlling a group of the Amish, basically. They confront him with this. He's sad about Ajax because everyone's sad about Ajax, and then they tell him the truth of their existence, and he has a freak attack because he's descended into maddening tyranny, with the justification that our purpose is to create a place where humans can thrive and life can be great, and if they're actually just food for the birth of the Celestial, why have I been doing all of this, and doesn't this all just suck? And his faux crisis of conscience manifests. The Deviants attack, Gilgamesh is killed, but his essence is absorbed by our chief Deviant.
Pro.
Total waste of Bill Skarsgård.
Really was. Who has been absorbing the powers of Deviants, of the Eternals, that's how he kills them. They decide that if they're going to try and do anything about this, they need Droog to use his mind control powers to put the Celestial back to sleep and then try to evacuate the Earth and then let it be born, because this is kind of a reasonable thing to do. So they decide to go try and find Phastos, who lost his faith in existence when humans nuked each other in World War II. Because, oh, woe is me, my technology led to this end. Why have I been brought so low? Get over yourself.
Not low enough that he decides to start a family.
I have issues with so much of this movie, but we'll get to it. So they find him in Chicago.
We're never going to get to it at the rate we're going.
They find him in Chicago, where he is happily raising a son with his gay partner, and they convince him to go along with this to try and save the world. There's still a bit of an argument of whether or not they should save it in the first place, but they want all the Eternals to be gathered so they can hold a quorum and make a decision. They travel to their ship, the Domo, where they find the Flash. The joke about half of this group being the Flash, Wonder Woman, and Superman. Like, we just need a Batman and Aquaman.
It doesn't help that they actually said they modeled Icarus and told Richard Madden to take his design and his influence from Zack Snyder's Man of Steel.
It doesn't help that that Phastos' kid looks at him and goes, "Hey, you're Superman."
That too. Although, does anyone else feel it's a little weird now knowing that the DC universe actually exists within the MCU?
No, because it's going to grow. It's going to turn into a dick measuring contest between the two studios. That's all it is. So they go to the ship. They find their speedster, who is also sad about the passing of Ajax and has a minor existential crises about what they're going to do. Phastos creates a couple of theoretical possibilities to fix this. One of which involves the melding of all of the Eternals together into the Unimind, which can then amplify their powers. Right about then, it's revealed that Icarus actually is the one who killed Ajax. He believes in the mission of the Celestials. Ajax had a change of heart because living with people was just such a transformative experience that even though Ajax knew all along, she's the only person that has retained her memories of different planets. Oh yeah, by the way, the same group of people has done this to countless planets over the millennia. And their memories are simply extracted and stored at a giant solid state drive, an external hard drive somewhere. and they just do this over and over and over and over again. Even though Ajax has gone along with this countless times before, humans are just so gosh darn special.
We only saved half the life in the universe. Some people are just impossible to please.
You know, can I just say, if you're going to have this big moral quandary about the existence of Celestials in the first place, Thanos did us all a favor by stopping all of them from being born for another how many thousands of years? Just saying.
And he gets
I don't think they do it with every planet.
I don't know.
It hit every...
That's the problem, though. Thanos don't get no respect.
But look, they're not in every planet.
We're almost at the end of this. Go, go, go.
The ending is easy. They have a crappy variation of Civil War. They all fight. The Celestial starts emerging with no greater consequence to the planet for a being of that size emerging from the core of the planet, you stupid writers. Cersei turns into Captain Marvel and turns it to Marble. Icarus flies into the sun to commit suicide because, whoa, I have betrayed the only people that I love. Sprite, who literally stabbed Cersei in the back, is instead given her fondest wish and told, go, live, be free, grow old, and die.
You missed the Pinocchio joke there. That would have been an ample time to do it. You want to do it again?
No, I don't care.
Cersei turns into a real boy. Go.
No, Cersei doesn't. Sprite does. Erisham shows up.
Whatever.
Erisham shows up and yoinks the 3 remaining Eternals on Earth into space. The others
in what is easily the only cool moment in the whole frickin' movie.
You are not wrong.
No,
when they do Galactus, it's going to be awesome.
It really
Hang on,
is.
when they get yoinked at super speed off the planet, I was having Carrie Fisher out in space moments from The Last Jedi.
That's because you're
alien robots.
Huh? I'm actually with David on this one because Galactus was trending on Twitter after this movie came out because everyone was pointing out, well, now at least we know that the MCU can do Galactus and we're not going to laugh.
Yeah, that's fine. The look of them actually super speed coming off the planet, and then I'm sorry, it looked like Carrie Fisher floating in space, frozen.
Yeah, no.
To me, it did. It looks stupid.
So, point being, a bunch of them. Oh, sorry. The big Deviant dies in the final fight because, of course, he does.
Again, total waste of a fight scene.
Also true. A bunch of the Eternals head off into space on the Domo, deciding, maybe we can find others of our kind. And if we've had doubts about the plans of the Celestials to prevent the annihilation of all life in the universe, I mean, how dare they? Maybe others will as well, and we can figure out what to do. So they head off. Erisham shows up, yoinks the 3 remaining ones, which was Cersei, Kingo, and
Phastos.
Phastos was the other one, yes. Yoinks the 3 of them into space and says, well, you committed a serious crime, but I'm gonna decide. I will allow you the due process under the law because I am a just human. I am a just creation, and we're gonna rip off the trial of Reed Richards for the sequel, and that's where that ends. In our mid-credit scene, the other Eternals are off on the Domo and they haven't heard from everyone, and Arisham must have gotten them. But here comes a drunk Seth Rogen to intro Star Fox, Pippi, Slippy,
Patton Oswalt.
Yeah, I hate to say it. I thought at first it was Seth Rogen. I adore Patton Oswalt. I listen to his stand-up all the time. That did not... Tell me I'm not the only one that didn't think that sounded like Patton Oswalt.
No, I got it was Patton Oswalt immediately.
I didn't get it.
No. I thought Seth Rogen.
I did too.
Yeah, I was like, I reckon it sounds familiar. I was initially thinking Ryan Reynolds, but I missed the boat there.
So the theme of this is we all saw a different movie. Got it.
So drunk comic troll shows up to introduce Star Fox, Peppy, Slippy, and Star Wolf. who are now here because they have to save Cornelia. Sorry, wrong Star Fox. They introduce one of the members from No Escape.
I'm sure you are the only person who has ever made that joke. I'm sure no one else on this planet.
I thought he was having a stroke. I swear to God. All right.
Hang on. So they introduce a character from one of the characters from One Direction. He shows up and is like, I'm the brother of Thanos. And everyone goes, wait, but you're an Eternal and we can't actually procreate. So how does that work unless you're being metaphorical? And he goes, shut up. Don't ask questions. This is the MCU. I can help you speak to your... I know where your friends are being held because, again, we're going to rip off the trial of Reed Richards. In the actual post-credits scene, Jon Snow swears allegiance to the Night's Watch.
And Blade shows up. All right, David, your thoughts on God and whether or not you'd really like to meet her. Go.
Well, personally, I actually kind of liked the movie. quite a bit.
Yay!
There, so you're not
Once
alone.
again, it's a 50-50.
Yeah. Well, like this has probably been the most I've enjoyed the MCU since Far From Home.
Okay.
Yeah, I could actually establish some sort of stakes going forward, and it's a slow movie. Like, let's not beat around the bush there. Like, about the point where they got to the Amazon, I was like, oh man, this film would be driving kids crazy.
Just for the record, the runtime on this is just less than that of No Time to Die, which took half of my lifetime.
Like, I wouldn't at all be surprised to find out that the movie originally had a different title and just someone transcribed the runtime instead for the title.
Yep.
Hang on.
Yeah,
Robert, I am so sorry I ever introduced him to the Pinkie Pie
Every show.
clips.
Go ahead, Dave.
Alexis, I dealt with him when he did when he had the entirety of his blog talk radio.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, so Loki. Don't stop. Yeah. Okay, lost my place there. Oh, yeah. So yeah, this film, it's not for kids. It's a lot of talking, a lot of more character plot stuff. Thank you. Yeah, but that to me kind of felt kind of refreshing to kind of go in a different direction. The problem with the Marvel formula is it's become too formulaic, so it's kind of nice for them to do something a bit different. I mean, yeah, it's not for everyone, and if you're used to the Marvel formula and you just want more of the Marvel formula, yeah, this could be a bit of a challenge in comparison. But again, like it felt new, fresh. I appreciated that they actually took a risk on doing this kind of a movie. That being said, it also did kind of suffer from some of the Marvel formula. Like right from the start, I'm like, okay, when are we going to find out the good guys are really the bad guys? Like I thought, what was it, Ajax? It's like, is she really dead? Or are we going to find out she faked her death as part of some evil plan to make the Deviants win or something like that? Because it's just been like, oh, look, Ego's really the villain. Oh, look, it was Agatha all along. Oh, look, the TVA is really bad. Oh, look, S.H.I.E.L.D. is really Hydra.
Right.
Like it just, it's still like the act of betrayal in Marvel movies has become so ubiquitous that I'm actually more surprised when there isn't a betrayal like that. Like they would be subverting my expectations by not subverting expectations at this point. The whole super deviant character. Why? Like, what was the point of that character in the film at all?
No point.
Like,
absolutely.
I think it existed to be a red herring for the marketing.
Correct.
Yeah.
Maybe. They also wanted to give badass Tomb Raider, kick-ass girl, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Angelina Jolie, a badass Tomb Raider, kick-ass fight scene, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Go, Dave. Yeah,
like I think they could have just had like normal fights with the Deviants until they figure out the whole celestial, like killing Earth issue. But to have like a Deviant that actually gains sentience and understands its place in the world, and then in the end they just kill it.
I was confused why he was fighting the Eternals too. It's like if he realized what the problem was, then wouldn't he also want to go up against the Celestials?
No, his objection to the Eternals is you've killed so many of my kind, I cannot tolerate your existence anymore. His objection to the Celestials is you made me to do a job and I did it and you still hate me. Why don't you love me, Dad?
Yeah. I mean, he's only been sentient for about a minute before he makes all that decision. So
hey, it took Ultron less time than that to decide to wipe out humanity with a chunk of the Earth that it levitates into the air.
Given the national conversation going on about this movie, I would have come to the same conclusion of both Crow and Ultron. Continue, Dave.
Yeah. So yeah, like I was kind of thinking, well, are they going to do a thing where they realize like, hey, we're all being used by the Celestials and they're going to destroy the planet, which is bad for all of us. So maybe we can work together. Yes, we're living on it.
Are they though?
Like I thought that maybe it would be like when Icarus.
Robert's nihilism aside.
It's not my nihilism. It's a literal thing that some of these characters have to try and contend with is the nature of their existence. And as a serious issue, bear in mind, this is explained horribly in the movie. There's a bunch of bad writing here. Oh, we've survived countless destructions of planets because we are one with the Celestial as it emerges. And this is what allows Cersei to turn into Captain Marvel and do the impossible. This is stupid. Your synthetic beings. There's a million of you back in storage. I don't need that crap. You die when it explodes, and your primary program is simply uploaded into a new unit. How hard is this?
Okay, so this is a film about engineering and logistics, but yeah. So I was sort of thinking,
half the time it is.
So the idea of like when Icarus does his heel turn, I thought, oh well, maybe the super deviant will sort of take their place in the Unimind, allowing them to achieve their objective. But no, like Angelina Jolie just kills it. I guess it cures her disease. But yeah, I kind of thought like they could really shave that whole subplot out and shorten the runtime, and nothing would have been lost.
Nothing.
Yeah, and like no real like I like the moral quandary at the end where it's like, we need to birth Celestials so we can keep life and the universe and everything going. But at the same time, it's killing everyone on the planet, and we kind of like these people, and they don't want to die.
If only this movie had devoted a fraction of its enormous runtime to the actual moral quandary there, instead of having it be a single discussion where two of the characters do a heel turn and Kingo pieces out.
Yeah, so it did devote a fraction of its runtime to that discussion.
No, it gave you a scene where they didn't even talk about it.
Yes, as a small part of a bigger part was devoted to it,
right.
Hence a fraction. I can be a pedantic ass too.
You certainly can, Ollie. Move this the fuck along.
Yeah, but yeah, I thought it was actually an interesting thing. It wasn't just, this is bad, we must stop it. It was like, well, it's bad, but it's also good, and which side do you come down on? Like like Icarus has a point. Like he's not just I want to destroy the planet because reasons. It's no, like we have to do this to keep the universe going. And if we start making exceptions, then everyone gets an exception, and this doesn't happen anymore. So yeah, and like I thought it was good that the Eternals actually have a bit of a dynamic between each other. They do have different views and opinions on things. Like even Kingo going like, you know what? I don't agree with you guys. I'm going with Icarus, but you believe what you believe. I'm not going to fight you. I'm just not going to help you. So I'm gone. Whereas Icarus is more full-on murder. And even like Icarus at the end, where he's in position to kill Cersei and stop her from killing Tiamat or whatever the Celestial's name was, and he just can't bring himself to do it because lovers. And after that, like he can't handle the guilt, so he kills himself by flying into the sun. Ironically,
yeah,
there are consequences.
Get it.
Yeah, like there are consequences to the characters' decisions. Like what they're doing actually matters. There's no magic get out of jail free card because the writer said so. So I appreciated that.
Icarus is going to show up in the sequel.
Maybe, but
it won't be this one, but he'll be back.
Okay, fair point. Yeah, they do have copies. But yeah, like the diversity of the sort of the Eternals experiences and their issues, I thought was kind of interesting. Yeah, we don't get a lot of time with many of them because big cast, only one movie. This isn't like an Avengers situation where we have multiple movies for all these characters, but they did a decent job, I think, setting the stage for them. And yeah, like there were some interesting ideas, like, the nature of one's existence, and do we do what we were created to do, or do we do what we want to do? And what are the effects of that? So like it did kind of start, this is kind of like existentialism 101. It kind of put a little bit in it, and I kind of appreciated that. It was a bit of
Existentialism for 7-year-olds.
Yeah, well, again, I don't think this movie would play well with 7-year-olds.
Boy, did they try, though.
Yeah, so yeah, and then like we have the whole thing, like you killed a baby at the end of this movie. It was a giant planet-smashing baby, but it was still this, it was an innocent life that was, just doing what is natural in the universe. And yeah, like I think they kind of needed to give a bit more emphasis on that.
They really did. Like they just brushed over the, murder there.
Yeah, it's like, wait a minute, we're killing it now? Like I thought the plan was mind control it so it goes to sleep to buy us enough time to, figure out.
But you don't understand. Druig is a male character, and the female character has to win.
David, anything else?
Yeah, almost at the end there. Yeah. And I do appreciate that even at the end, Arisham, he doesn't just freak out. He goes, hey, you guys you had one job to birth this Celestial, and you didn't do it. You better have had a really good reason for that, and I'm going to give you a chance to explain yourselves. And if I approve of your explanation, then okay, humanity continues to live. If not, I'm going to bring the hammer down. Like, it's like, oh, this is actually like some sort of rational thought here.
Yeah. I appreciate the fact that they're going to show up in front of the living tribunal for the next episode.
And now opening remarks for the prosecution, Alexis.
My biggest problem with this film, like I mentioned earlier, is that this film tries to cram so much into, admittedly, a stupidly huge long runtime, but it focuses on stuff that, frankly, is not interesting enough to keep us. There are so many characters in this film, and so many of them have story arcs and backgrounds that I think would have been fascinating for. And I would have watched a 2-hour movie about any of these other characters. Thank you. I always wanted claws on the back.
Yeah,
of the head.
I found the fight scenes to be the most boring part of the film.
Not done well, and the CGI in places does not hold up.
But
Not
if they're not
really.
there, your audience of 7-year-olds, both,
I understand.
Age-wise or maturity-wise, is going to throw their drinks and popcorn at the movie screen. They have to be there. It's perfunctory. Go on, Alexis.
I do appreciate that Chloé Zhao tried so hard to minimize how much CGI they used. Most of the location shots they were on location. She used very little green screen effects, very little CGI for that. And the movie is very beautiful looking on that regard. But again, I would have rather watched so many of these other characters and learned about them. You got Sprite, who is an eternal locked in the body of a preteen, never to grow old and never to fall in love or anything like that. That's interesting. You have Kingo, who has spent 5 generations playing his own descendant as an actor in Bollywood. That's interesting. You have Fastos, who has, just lost his faith because he has seen his technology, what he started, turn into genocidal weapons, and now he's just trying to make a go of it with a family. That would have been interesting. You have Druig, who is basically saying, like, I have these 2 pets and they keep fighting and I can break them up if I want, but I'm told not to, and then I come home one day and one of the pets is dead, and he's found this peace by mind controlling a whole village. That's interesting. So many
And
of these
terrifying.
very terrifying, but interesting. You can't argue.
Yeah.
So many of these characters are interesting, and we spend almost the whole movie focusing on Cersei and Icarus, who have no personalities whatsoever. They are boring. They are so dull. Look, I am not the kind of person who says that every Marvel movie has to be the same. I am not the kind of person that says, where's my big, action scene? Where's my quipping heroes? I'm not going to say that. I understand we have to evolve and we have to try different things, but a Marvel movie should still be entertaining. This wasn't entertaining. This was boring. This was dull.
This was, well, to you and many others, but let's not overspeak this. It's not a real word, but I can't. I'm trying to make a point so that you can continue.
We can assume everyone's
boring
opinion
to
is their
some
opinion.
people, not all people. Let's put it this way: there were 3 people, me, and my 2 kids, and we all came away with different levels of entertainment value from this movie. I was entertained, my daughter was entertained, my son was like, when's Venom 3 coming out? So, I mean, and that's the thing. That's one of the things I've kind of hated about the discussion of this movie, not our discussion necessarily, but just sort of the general one, is, yeah, a lot of people were bored by it, which is perfectly fine and valid. You get to have that opinion, and as a general audience member. But to say that, the movie is objectively boring, it entertained nobody, it has no value in the cinematic landscape, it's a bit much. It's a bit of an overreach.
Okay, fair enough. For me, I mentioned this before, Mark, on our other show with the MCU's Bleeding Edge. I think the way that this should have gone, this should have been a series. This should have been an MCU Disney Plus series. We could have used episodes to focus on the individual characters, follow their storyline, learn a bit more about them, understand their development a bit more. I think this would have been so much better on that. The fact is that the Eternals are very interesting characters, and there is a lot of potential there. This movie was just grossly mishandled, in my opinion.
Okay. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that, or are you good?
I think that's it for now.
Okay. To keep this moving along and to not backtrack over stuff that Dave and Alexis already said, I just have really 3 points. 1, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good is, I understand that Robert's about to throw himself on top of me screaming the moral quandary was stupid and poorly done. I liked it. I think my opinion, Mark Radulich, opinion, subjective. This was a better handled moral quandary than the one we got in Civil War. There's been 2 of them in the length and breadth of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I'm willing to give maybe more credit than it's due, just because it's the only other one they've ever dealt with. Everything in the Marvel Universe is MacGuffins and chasing them around a concentrated area. We got to get a thing to go with thing to, we've talked, Robert and I have done so many podcasts. Rob's done at least 2 series on the problems with the Marvel Cinematic Universe villains. They've always got a cockamamie Batman 66X plan. There's always a thing everyone's chasing around, and they're always underdeveloped.
And the villain is always a dark reflection of the hero.
Right. And what I liked about this movie is that the central conflict was a moral and ethical one, wherein, and I like the idea that they're playing around with this, and it's something that I think like DC Comics has done with their Cosmic Sphere, Marvel to a lesser extent, which is, why are we focusing so much on Earth? Earth is only one of zillions of planets out there. Why is this one special? And and the fourth wall breaking answer is, well, that's where the audience is, and that's who pays for the comics. But but they've always had to sort of done mental gymnastics to explain it in continuity in the books. I like the fact that there's a character at least speaking for the argument of it's not special. Earth is not special. Earthlings are not special. We are part of an intelligent design. I'm not really pointing at the religious thing, but I think it's a good phrase to use here. We are pointing at the intelligent design of the universe here. Earth is just a small fraction of that. It's not the center of it as it's been made out to be. And then the other side of the argument is, yes, but we love these people. You can't help who you fall in love with. You can't stop yourself from falling in love in all reality. And yes, we could have fallen in love with any number of beings throughout the universe, but we fell in love with these people. And so we're going to protect them, as maddening and as illogical as that might be. And those 2 forces are in conflict. You can now talk about how it's done at a 7-year-old level, but at least they tried. And at least it was there. And it was more intelligently written than the conflict of Civil War, which was dumber than shit. We covered that ad nauseum. And there is nothing else like that in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's not a whole lot of that in any movie that we cover on here these days. I talked about this on... I
can't imagine why.
I talked about this on Jeff's podcast. This was, I think, closer to The Boys and Jupiter's Legacy than it was a typical Marvel movie, which may play into why people are having such struggles with it. But that's what I liked about it. I like the fact that it was in part a deconstruction of the superhero genre. And that leads that leads me to what doesn't work about this movie. But let me also say the best thing about this movie, and this is to Chloé Zhao's credit, and we talked about this with Nomadland, the woman knows how to make the cameras work for her. She makes pretty movies. Nomadland is pretty gorgeous.
Very.
She really does need to be more someone's director of photography than directing this kind of movie.
Or be a director for hire for something that requires visuals but has nothing to do with this. But she has nothing to do with the story. She's just making the picture come alive. The star of this movie is the visuals, not any single actress or performer or anything like that or scene. It's a gorgeous movie from start to finish. The blues in Babylon pop like few pictures I've seen this year. Even the final fight scene, as much as it's on a beach, it all pops and is very colorful and dynamic, and it's just a gorgeous movie to behold. So, if you're not utterly lost by the plot of this thing or bored by the performances or whatever the story is, I think you should at least be engaged by what's on screen, which is a major pillar of filmmaking and something that, deserves credit. What doesn't work is this movie definitely exceeded its own reach. Or attempted to and failed miserably. There was a lot of heft here. This thing needed another pass or 2 through editing and save something else for another film or make it a television show, as Alexis said. This is the one thing that Alexis and I are in 100% agreement on. There was too much movie for even a 2.5 to 3 hour runtime. Like Endgame earns its runtime to the degree that you have followed James Bond's story. That movie earned its runtime, even though it didn't make the most of it. It didn't make the most of it. It earned it, though. You can make the argument, we need 3 hours to say goodbye to Daniel Craig. The 3 hours were wasted. doesn't. Let's move on. The 3-hour runtime of Return of the King was earned. 3 hours of these people was not earned, not in the slightest, and that's a big problem with this movie. The ugly, and I want to take issue with something that Alexis said, and I brought this up on MCU's Bleeding Edge. I think when you're sitting around the writing table and you're like, we're going to talk about space robot gods, okay? We're going to do a movie about space robot gods. What would space robot gods act like? How would they behave? What would they do? They're not human beings. They're not afforded the full range of emotionality that you would experience as a human being. So what would they do? And then you say, okay, give me more stoicism. Give me a little bit more flat, because you're centuries old beings. You're not going to be moved into hysterics at the drop of a hat the way the rest of us mortals are. So give me that kind of performance. And then Gemma Chan and what's his face who plays Icarus? Help me.
Richard Madden.
Thank you. Richard Madden do that. Angelina Jolie does that when she's not going cross-eyed and acting weird. They for the most part give you, I think, what Chloé Zhao was looking for, and then everyone goes, why aren't they making quips like Thor and Spider-Man? Like, that's not their characters. That's not what the director wanted of them. That's not what this movie is. I think expecting the audience, after being trained as they were with 97 Marvel movies before this, to appreciate stoicism as acted on screen is asking your audience for a lot, which is why I categorize this as ugly. But I would not say that that's a poor or boring or bad performance or a poor choice of direction. They went for a look and they went for an aesthetic. They went for a tone. They mostly achieved it. Your take on it, your mileage may vary as to how much you appreciate that. Robert?
All right, closing arguments for the prosecution then.
Thank you for going with that joke.
Here's, I think, where this movie really falls apart. We've all said it. I think it's true. This needed to be a series. This needed 8 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Give this an 8-hour first season. I don't think we have a problem here as far as that goes. I disagree with you on the following ways about when you talk about the performances, especially of our two primary characters, Cersei and Icarus.
Mm-hmm.
You can do stoicism. And I think that's okay. But you do need to be somewhat interesting. There has to be something there. Like, what is there to Cersei as a character?
Yeah, okay. I know what you're alluding to. This is kind of a Captain Marvel problem where you're afforded attributes that are not actually seen on screen.
And again, the same is true of Icarus, lest I be accused of some kind of sexism here. Icarus doesn't really have a personality either. And I'm okay with stoic. Like, you're correct. These people would not have the same reactions that you or I do. And they only come out a little bit when they start interacting with each other, which is the only people they have any kind of real sense of familiarity with. So I'm okay with that as a general choice, but it's a big fault. It's a big fault in the writing and arguably the acting, depending on how much leash they were given in their performances, to make them this uninteresting.
Can it be said, though, that because so many other people in the cast, Sprite, Faustus, Druig, for the little bit that is on screen, Gilgamesh is
great.
They all had distinctive dynamic personalities. Yeah. If you have everybody being clowns, then nobody stands out. I think somebody has to be the straight man.
You can be a straight man without being a plank of wood.
Okay.
If you want another example of this,
Henry Cavill in The Witcher.
Sure, that's a good one. He's stoic, but he's also got a personality.
Right.
How about Goliath and Gargoyles? He's incredibly stoic, but he's got a personality.
Omni-Man, believe it or not, in Invincible, is a very stoic character.
Utopian once again.
Yeah, but they're stoic, but there's personality. There's something going on. They're actual characters. Cersei and Icarus may as well have been made out of cardboard.
Okay.
And I think that's a real problem, especially if you're going to tell me that one of the big emotional climaxes of this thing is supposed to be Icarus going, I can't kill you, I love you, I will help you destroy this thing and then kill myself out of guilt. Like you,
we never even really get a scene why they love each other.
No.
Hey, they had sex on the beach. That was all we needed. All right, someone needed to say it's out there
Sure.
now. Go ahead.
So do you mean they actually had intercourse, or are you referring to the beverage?
Both. However
Okay.
it is they got naked on the beach, I'm sure alcohol was involved.
It was ancient Babylon. Okay, I'll give you maybe.
No,
That actually does. That goes to a
Sorry.
big problem with this movie. This is a bigger problem, I think, than some of the others. This movie is great about telling you, not showing you. The visuals, I'm with you guys about this, like the cinematic visuals, the vistas, the cinematography. Great, 100% highlight of the movie. Absolutely great. The fact that we need Druig to go on a brief rant about his ethos, that we need King Mo to explain to all of us in painful detail that Sprite loves Icarus in an unrequited way. Let's just make the Peter Pan reference. We need Icarus to actually say "I love you" because he never actually shows it.
I felt so sorry for Sprite with Kiko. Like, keep poking me at the sensitive area of my psyche.
There's just so much telling, not showing when it comes to characters and their interactions with each other, and it's a real problem. To anyone who was bored by this movie, I know I was. Here's part of the problem with that, and I think one of the things that induces it. The first 2/3 of this thing are shockingly repetitive. Allow me to summarize in the following fashion. Two of the Eternals are attacked by a deviant in London, and Icarus shows up. They find Ajax. She's dead, and they're sad. They go find another Eternal, tell him that Ajax is dead, and they're sad. They go find another Eternal, tell him that Ajax is dead, and he's sad. They go find another Eternal.
Deviant attack.
They go find another Eternal. Ajax dead. We're sad. Deviant attack. Oh, existential crises. We need the other Eternal. Other Eternal. Ajax dead. We're sad. And existential crises. And faux philosophical argument. And then we all just keep moving on anyway. It's the same stupid thing over and over and over and over again. And if you're bored by that, I don't blame you one bit.
We really should have gotten more of Kit Harington's Dane, because frankly, he had more personality.
Well, we talked about this on Sunday. I don't know why he's even in the movie, except to do the bit with the ebony blade at the end.
Yeah, he's almost sure not appearing in this picture.
Yeah,
I'm excited to get the Black Knight in a future film, and I'm thrilled it's going to be played by Kit Harington because I love him as an actor.
Oh,
if I'm angry about anything, or if I'm joining in the chorus of people booing at this picture, is that Kit Harington was utterly the character of the Black Knight was a waste in this picture. If they needed to shave runtime, just cut his part.
But I would have cut like 1 minute out.
I completely forgot my other half of the gag about Jon Snow joining the Night's Watch, soon to coming to you soon on Disney Plus in an 8-episode miniseries. Because I don't think they're giving that a full movie. I might be wrong, but my hunch would be not.
It's going to be interesting if they have him work with Blade. Black Knight and Blade really didn't pair up that often in the comics.
Because of the way the movie ends with the voice off screen being Mahershala Ali, who is being Blade. I suspect that's where he turns up next. Robert, finish up your points.
The finale of this movie, the final fight sequence. I hated this so much.
But for why?
I'm happy to illuminate my point.
This is on you now, Mark. You encouraged him.
I'm willing to go along with a whole lot in these movies. I'm not going to yell about Erisham showing up in Earth's orbit and not causing problems. I'm not. He travels via singularity. Okay, I'll acknowledge he can probably control the amount of gravity that is inherent to his mass, so he's not going to cause problems when he travels around the universe. Okay, we're good. No problem. The giant celestial bursting through the crust of the Earth. I got a problem with that. Do you have any idea, just displacing that much water, the tsunami?
I know you want to do a Mr. Wizard thing, but 50 words or less. We get it. It's stupid.
It's more than stupid. There's plenty of stupid in the MCU.
No, but I mean, it's stupid to think that you can have a large, thousands of foot tall thing erupt from the core of the planet, and it causes maybe a mild wave in an earthquake. We get
Again, giant tsunamis, to say nothing of what you have done to the internal makeup of the Earth. You have just disrupted the entire rotation of I forget the exact amount of liquid metal that makes up the Earth's core. You have disrupted all of that. Do you know how important the rotation of that liquid metal is to the Earth?
Very.
It's what creates the magnetic field that lets us determine north from south. It's what creates the Van Allen radiation belts that shield us from the cosmic rays of the sun, and you've now disrupted it with no consequence. You have gone too far with this. I need disaster. You burst something from the Earth's core of that size. You want to stop it? Okay, I'll go along with you. But if you don't have something move heaven and earth to stop the sheer destruction that is a result of that kind of motion on a planetary scale, we got a real problem.
What if Icarus had flown around the Earth
backwards?
Backwards.
Okay.
Robert, would it make you feel any better if we just said a wizard did it?
No. because Doctor Strange didn't show up.
Yeah, or maybe we have enough superheroes now that they can deal with all those disasters elsewhere on the planet.
Look,
yeah, The Rock was flying around in a helicopter from a different movie.
Sure.
Maybe that'll be the subject of an upcoming film. Similar.
That would be a really good introductory sequence for another hero movie.
Think about what we had with WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier. How they actually tackled the sudden appearance of all the people who returned to the planet. Because I think even we mentioned it's like that's going to be kind of complicated. They did actually cover that, and I think we were all relatively satisfied with those answers.
But I think what Robert is saying is that that Tiamat's hand just coming up as far as it did, the journey from the hand from wherever it started to where it got to would have caused sufficient enough planet that we'd all be dead. Got it?
Nothing of the head showing up.
Right. Okay.
A giant portion of that sticks out of the we may not cause an extinction level event with that, you might not, but you caused a lot of problems there, and to brush that off in a newsreel the next scene with, hey, this thing appeared suddenly in the middle of the Indian Ocean, no.
Okay.
We have gone too far.
You this much consternation other than the Marvel writers, shock of all socks, heaven forfend, don't understand how physics work?
There's physics, and then there's common sense. They don't even understand common sense at this point.
Again, written for 7-year-olds by 7-year-olds. We got it.
You're not wrong. Okay, the last thing I think I wanted to touch on was you brought up the moral dilemma that is at least given lip service to. I'm going to disagree with you slightly in only the following way. The entire argument for not murdering this nascent being, as it comes into consciousness and will then give life to galaxies, is taken up by the one character that we know is a villain. Sprite is not convinced by the argument. She's desperately in love with Icarus. Kingo gives you a bit of lip service, but then he pieces out. And I'm okay with him being non-confrontational about this, believe it or not. I'm not saying he needed to do a Han Solo or a heel equivalent thereof in the final fight. Okay.
Even though it does make his character almost completely useless.
Completely. 100% useless. This guy could have been written out of this movie. Nothing would be lost.
They needed an airplane, because only one of them can fly.
So they charter one. These people are rich beyond imagining being alive for this long. Come on.
Cersei can turn anything into gold. Seriously, I don't think money is an issue for them.
Yeah, that's not a problem. I just feel like if you're going to try and even pay lip service to this argument, we need somebody that isn't a flat piece of wood and a bad guy to stand up for it. Kingo doesn't really stand up for it so much as go, I think he's right, but I don't know for sure, and you have my blessing to go oppose him because I am just enjoying the view from up here on this fence I'm straddling. I don't think that works. I think if you want to address this as a legitimate moral quandary, you need to give legitimate space for the arguments to develop, and this movie doesn't do that, because then we have to move on to one existential crisis after another, all of which are done in a fashion that a 7-year-old could follow and a teenager will think is deep. This is a poorly written movie. It is repetitive. If you were entertained by it, I imagine it's because you spent a lot of time looking at the vistas and the camera work that was done, because there's not a whole lot else here. The fight choreography is poor. Icarus is the worst iteration of evil Superman that we've seen in the last 8 years.
There's been a lot of those.
Yeah, he wasn't even that evil.
You know what I mean. Villainous Superman, if you prefer, rather than evil. I mean, I joked about him being Homelander, but Homelander's a fascinating character. Icarus is a plank of wood. Omni-Man is an interesting character that plays off of other interesting characters and is voiced by the wonderful J. Jonah Jameson. And
Brightburn was an interesting character.
More interesting than this. It's a failure of writing. It's a failure of character direction, not visual direction. Again, Chloé Zhao, beautiful visuals. 100%. There's a failure of internal logic frequently. There's a handful of exposition dumps that are poorly placed and even worse explained. It's not a good movie. Now, there are good things about it, but that doesn't make it a good movie. I just take way too many issues with this. I think everything was given too short a shrift. The stuff that they tried to give greater emphasis to fell flat. The writing of certain characters was weak. There's just not a whole lot here of any substance. I would be shocked if anyone watches this more than once.
Ah, but you see, my good man. But there is one thing I believe we can all agree on. That was
I don't. Hang
wonderful.
On.
Please stop arguing with me. I just want to do the plug.
I know you want to do the plug, so let me say this, so you can
But
do
I've
this slightly
written down the
differently.
time.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The music in this isn't even all that good.
Shut up. Skeeter Davis's End of the World is hauntingly beautiful. And do you know where you can find this hauntingly beautiful version of the End of the World by Skeeter Davis?
I said.
No, Mark, where?
Tell us.
Skeeter Davis, David and Alexis, you can find her version of End of the World that is used in the trailers and in this movie, which is wonderful and beautiful, and honestly has been stuck in my head since then. Besides the beautiful vistas of this movie is the only other thing that's really stuck with me. You can find it all on AmazonMusic.com, don't you know? And we are giving away a free 30. I don't know why I go Irish when I say that, but free 30 days of a free 30-day trial of the Amazon Music Unlimited service by clicking the link in the description of this podcast at getamazonmusic.com/W2M network. Getamazonmusic.com/W2M network. If you're not a communist like Robert is and you actually enjoyed the music of this movie,
how do you get from point A to point B there?
By monorail. Then you can go check out the soundtrack, the complete soundtrack, the orchestral versions, everything that was used in this movie on AmazonMusic.com. And if you like other things, you can find them too. There'll be 70 billion songs on AmazonMusic.com.
If you're interested in movie soundtracks that don't suck, check out Hans Zimmer's work from Dune.
What was the other one that we just did where we said that the one good thing about it? Oh, it was Mank. Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor. Outstanding soundtrack that you can find on AmazonMusic.com/W2M network. And with that, goddamn Val.
Hey, look, we got that done in about the time we wanted to, so credit to us.
It only took me screaming 3 times. Here we
I
go.
do actually have one quick question bringing up music and things you listen to. Anyone else question why Macaria was using the American Sign Language over 1,000 years before America was even founded?
Because
or why were they using English before English was a language?
I know. I can deal with the whole English thing because I've always just assumed that when they're speaking English, it's a case of they're probably speaking another language. We hear it as English for our behalf, but no, I've actually studied a little American Sign Language, and when I saw Macaria using it, again, I love that they cast a deaf actress for this. It was awesome, but at the same time, I'm going, wait, shouldn't she be? I mean, I was kind of thinking like with the scene with Dune, where they actually had their own version of sign language, which I thought was really, really creative.
It's a lot to ask. It's a lot to ask for in a Marvel movie for them to create their own sign language.
I just thought they could have done something like that.
Everybody in the universe is American.
Hang on. Better question is, why would Arishem create a defective robot that couldn't hear?
I have a better question for you. How much did this money make? I don't know. Let's check the money.
We're in the money. We're in the money.
Mary and Joseph. All right.
Why did you switch to that clip?
Because it doesn't it doesn't ding the copyright thing on YouTube.
Yeah. Also, still love the Spanish subtitles.
And we love you, Robert Winfree. Fuck all. On a budget of $200 million, this thing on its opening weekend thus far worldwide has made $166.3 million, which is fairly decent when you're only considering the Great Reset of American cinema. Not great judged against any version of the MCU up to the year 2019 and all Lord. With that said, it was the number one movie of the weekend. No shit, Sherlock. It'll be the number one movie of this weekend because it has no competition.
Hang on. I think you're correct. Let me start there.
Oh, good.
I'm really surprised no one tried to come out the second week on this, because
again, they were pushing for Ghostbusters, but then Maverick moved and everything kind of, everyone sort of ran from the Eternals because the internal logic, I'm assuming, of Sony and some of the other ones was, hey, let's not directly compete with this thing. Let's give it some space to breathe and see how it does.
And it turns out you could have, if Ghostbusters comes out this Friday, there's no competition. It blows Eternals out of the water.
Oh yeah, Eternals is like face down dead in an alley. But again, everything ran from this weekend. It's the big wide release is Belfast, which only if you're looking at Oscar movies is anyone going to go see that thing. That's going to be a race to PVOD. But that is literally the only wide release that I saw. So yeah, anyone going to the movies this weekend is still going to see Eternals.
To the extent that anyone chooses. I don't know. I'm serious question to the four of you and anyone watching along, if you happen to be doing so live. You going to go see this in theaters again?
No.
Mark?
What, Eternals?
Yeah.
No.
David?
Yeah. Also, no. We'll go see Dune again, though. But Disney Plus, home video, might give it another look.
Well, I'm going to have to watch it again on Disney Plus because my husband didn't want to see it in theaters, and he said he'd see it when it comes out on Disney Plus.
Well, it does bring us to, before I continue with the weekend, Disney now has 45-day window. So like Shang-Chi just got to Disney Plus, I think, this past week.
The 12th, I think, or at least maybe for us in Canada.
Either way, Black Widow, not that long ago. My point being that for people who were we're kind of out on the Eternals going to see it in movies, they don't have to wait that long anymore to see it on Disney Plus. And a lot of people are doing the mental math going, is this something I need? Like, for people who were like, oh my God, female superhero, got to go see that in theaters, went to the theaters to go see Black Widow, even though they could have immediately got it on Disney Plus, because, people were interested in that character had a legacy. There was some built-in interest in there, which,
in theory,
with Shang-Chi, again, people, were interested in seeing whatever the newest Marvel movie was. It was a kung fu movie. There was again a lot of built-in interest there. Eternals doesn't unfortunately have that going for it. I think people sort of looked at this, don't know who the Eternals are. This is the Chris Bailey argument. No one knows what the Eternals are. Nobody cares. And unless you were just a committed Marvel fan, that has to see everything in the theaters, a lot of people were making the mental math of not going to see it.
I also think it needs to be said. The counter argument to this frequently is, no one knew who the Guardians of the Galaxy were either. And
if the Guardians of the Galaxy,
or Iron Man, or Black Panther, or Ant-Man, or anyone other than Hulk and Spider-Man.
I don't want to go through the entire 37-odd list of movies, but just Guardians of the Galaxy I'll focus on. That had a fun pop music soundtrack that got everyone's attention, and Black Panther was Black Panther.
Well, hang on. The other there's something else that Guardians of the Galaxy in particular had going for it at the time that doesn't exist at the moment. And that was a lot of goodwill. Marvel had a bunch of goodwill built up at that point. And in the wake of Endgame, a lot of that has gone away. Whether that's fair or not, I think is an entirely different subject.
It went away because we had a year break and everyone was dealing with the end of the world. That's not really fair. That's not all Marvel.
Okay, but I'm not blaming them. I'm saying they don't have it.
Black Panther also had the advantage of having the character appear in Civil War. So when they got the movie announced, more people were familiar with it, and because they were like, oh yeah, the character who showed up in that movie.
Right. Have the Eternals show up in Loki. You might do better here. Let's move on.
Well, my counter argument was just like before Black Panther showed up in Civil War, nobody knew who Black Panther was.
No,
with the exception of Spider-Man and the Hulk, pretty much every character in the MCU up to this point has been obscure as far as the general public is considered.
But they've done a better job. And look, not every movie that introduced a hero did well either. Thor and Captain America's first movies didn't do great. It's the MCU has only been wildly successful since Phase 2. Phase 1, one could argue was meh, financially.
Phase 2 was Phase 1 was successful enough financially to warrant them going forward with it, more than I think for Phase 1 at least, more than pure financial returns, it was trying to permeate the pop culture, and it did that better than anything in Phase 2 did.
Well, what I was trying to say was, like, once you got to Phase 2, once you had the initial rollout of your core characters, then Phase 2 comes along, and the formula is introduce a new character in an old guy's movie, and then do the movie that you're going to see him in following that, and that worked for them. All right, we got to move this on. So Eternals debuts at number 1. It did 71 million domestic. It did.
Yeah,
it did 71 million in its opening weekend, but it's had 166 worldwide because it had, I think, released earlier in some other parts of the world. Dune fell from 1 to 2.
Credit to Dune, it didn't even lose 50% of its drop from week 1 to week 2. That's darn good.
It missed it by 0.5.
Still, look, if you hold 50% or more, that's really good.
And there was a drop of 579 theaters. No Time to Die in its third week maintained its third spot, dropped 22% and lost another 500 theaters. Venom, the bane of Robert's existence, actually went up.
It's up there.
It went up a spot. It went from 5 to 4 this week. Even though
Robert,
it lost...
what do you say, Robert? What was worse, Eternals or Venom?
It dropped 638. I don't even want to wait for an answer. It dropped 638 theaters. For a 22% drop. So, I mean, look, regardless of what Robert Winfree thinks of it, it's doing well. Ron's Gone Wrong, again, jumped up. This is weird. Ron's Gone Wrong debuted at number 8 and jumped to number 5 somehow. I guess the word got out on it. And that's despite almost 1,000 theater drop. The French Dispatch had more of a wide opening this weekend. It went from 10 to 6, and it opened in 417 theaters. Halloween Kills plummeted.
Yeah, boy, did it.
Hang on. Wait a minute. And boy, did it plummet. We don't need to hear the whole crash. You get the point. Let's see here. So that dropped from 2 to 7. Spencer debuted at number 8. This is a prestige picture by Neon Productions. I'm actually going to see it this weekend. Alexis and I will review it sometime in January, along with a couple of other prestige pictures that are coming out. I didn't expect anyone to actually go see this thing, and I don't think the studio did either. This was put out to compete for an Oscar, and apparently it's worthy of it. From what I've heard, the buzz on Kristen Stewart did a hell of a job with this. Antlers fell from 6 to 9. Last Night in Soho, 7 to 10. Speaking of bombs, I'm not going to play the sound again.
Yeah, but speaking of bombs, that one is. It's not quite atomic, but it might be a Moab.
Yeah. My Hero Academia, World Heroes Missions fell from 4 to 11. Not
surprising. Not a lot of rewatch value there.
Yeah. Surya Vanashi, number 12. The Addams Family, which also debuted simultaneously on PVOD, dropped out of almost 1,000 theaters, went down 53% and dropped from 9 to 13. So that's pretty much the end of that picture.
Yeah. Shang-Chi's about to just be done.
Yeah. Well, we talked about that before the Eternals came out. So that dropped from 11 to 14 and is now about to be on Disney Plus. The Last Duel, The Last Me Too, lost 730 theaters. They can't get that thing out of the theaters fast enough. Dropped from 12 to 15. Free Guy still hanging in there from August. Dropped from 15 to 16.
How is Free Guy still doing that in Last Duel, which I have actually heard nothing but good stuff about, just bombing that badly?
We reviewed it. I mean, look, unless you're like really into medieval type movies, nobody wants to go see a sad movie about a rape. That's why it's not doing well.
No, so it's like all the reviewers that I follow are all like, "Why are not more people see this movie? It's so good."
Okay, yeah, those are reviewers who have lost touch with. I mean, look, I might scream about Venom being trash because I think it is. I'm not miffed as to why morons are entertained by it.
And 7-year-olds, don't forget them. They count.
They're included in this. They're included in the statement of morons. They're 7.
Just wanted to make sure we were on the same page. The Rescue, 17, 2 weeks in a row. The Souvenir Part 2, 22 to 18. Wow, a lot of things went up. This is the weirdest scale. A Mouthful of Air, 14 to 19. Jungle Cruise, 21 to 20.
Good for you, Jungle Cruise.
I was gonna say that should either be coming onto Disney Plus soon and if it hasn't already.
Yeah, I think it's just about there. And Dear Evan Hansen, you stink. That joke never gets old.
That movie really does, though.
Christmas versus the Walters debuted at number 22 and made a paltry 27,000. Jesus Christ, they don't even pay teachers that little. The Beta Test debuted at number 24, and that was the weekend that was. As I said, this weekend there is no competition, so Eternals will most likely repeat in the number 1 spot, and then the 19th is Ghostbusters. The reviews are coming out. Hey Alexis, have you seen the news today? I don't want specifics necessarily, but do you know generally what people are so aggravated about Ghostbusters for? Because I saw something on Twitter today. I saw 2 things. One, apparently a bunch of Spider-Man pictures leaked. I have not seen them, but that's been a big Twitter hue and cry.
For the sake of the argument, we're not going to talk about Spider-Man spoilers on this particular podcast.
Yeah, no. I just
we'll discuss it when we discuss Disney Plus Day.
I just wanted to point out that there were 2 hue and cries on Twitter today. One was the Spider-Man leak, which I don't care about. 2 was something about Ghostbusters. I guess the reviews are coming out for that now, and apparently it's very heavily laden with nostalgia and pointing to the original 2 movies is what I thought I was reading. And people
it's almost like it's a sequel.
And people are pissed about it. What do you see with your elven eyes?
You really think I'm an elf?
Yeah, I quote lots of movies.
It's a compliment.
I also ask people what are their thoughts on God and whether they'd like to meet her. I'm laden with quotes.
Okay. Most reviews I've heard have been positive for Ghostbusters. I know that another trailer was released in the last 24 hours in which you actually hear Bill Murray talk.
Okay.
Because we know that Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Ernie Hudson are going to make cameos in this.
Okay.
They revealed a little bit more of the plot and how this is going to tie in more specifically to the previous Ghostbusters movies. It's not just... We all know this is Egon's family.
Yes.
We all know this is his daughter and his grandchildren.
Yes.
That is not a surprise. We know that. But apparently there is now more of a plot revealed about how this ties in. I guess without trying to go into too much of what could potentially be spoilers, Ivo Chandler, who designed the building that Dana Barrett lived in the first Ghostbusters movie. I'm assuming we are all giant Ghostbusters nerds and we know this.
Enough.
I know enough to follow.
You.
Yeah, okay. Tell me it's like you guys at least have seen the movie 5,000 times, like the rest of humanity.
I have not counted, but more than once.
Else, I just took my kids to see it Halloween weekend. So yes, I remember the name from the movie.
Okay, yeah. I got them both on my computer upstairs. I put them on whenever I'm bored and I need to work. So yes, apparently Ivo did not just design this building. He put in installments around the country, sort of as a fail-safe if the building didn't work. And this well in Oklahoma, which is near where Egon's family's house is one of those. So that's why this is now getting all this attention.
And this is triggering critics because, why can't we do something new and interesting?
I guess, which frankly...
Morons.
Okay, yeah, here's the thing. They tried to do something new, and that's when we got the Ghostbusters 2016. This one was directed by Jason Reitman, Ivan Reitman's son, who did an article when this was first announced saying, hey, I'm the original Ghostbusters fan. He talks about being on the set as a little kid, how he got to enjoy before the movie ever came out. And yes, critics are saying this film is I'm sorry about the barking dogs.
They're chasing a ghost.
They've actually been quite well behaved for most of the podcast.
I have to leave the back door open, otherwise she cries to go out, and I have to continuously get offline. But yes, they're saying that this film is a love letter to the fans of the original Ghostbusters. And yeah, I guess some people are bitching and moaning about that, but I'm not gonna lie, I haven't actually seen a lot of negative
Okay.
stuff about this, but I also tend to follow more of the nerdy crowds
Right.
who grew up with Ghostbusters like I did, and when they actually hear Bill Murray say a line, they're like, oh my god, it's Peter Venkman.
I have a sneaking suspicion when we talk about this in 2 or 3 weeks, it's going to be one of those Rotten Tomato low scores, but audience scores is like 100%. So whatever.
Like I said, I honestly haven't heard anything particularly bad about it. I've heard the acting's good. I heard the setup is good. I heard all the tie-ins work. I've heard the tie-ins do not feel forced, like some of the things we saw in the 2016 Ghostbusters. You know, anyone know what Zool is? Yeah, everyone put a bullet in your head for that line.
All right, so we got Ghostbusters in 2 weeks. So it'll be Eternals again next week, this Friday. And then next week is Ghostbusters. That'll be the #1 movie. But unfortunately, Ghostbusters is not going to have a big run because it's going to have to then compete with Encanto, House of Gucci, and Resident Evil. Everyone gets a break December 3rd. There's nothing coming out that weekend because Nightmare Alley moved.
So what are we betting on between Encanto, House of Gucci, and Resident Evil?
What do you mean, what are we betting on?
Which one
like,
takes
are we
the top
betting on
spot?
which is...
Oh, the #1 movie, it'll be Encanto. It's Thanksgiving weekend, and it's a Disney movie.
Yeah, family movie.
Without question. I mean, that's kind of the new thing now, is to have your Thanksgiving dinner and then go to the movies to see the latest family film.
Right. I think the House of Gucci movie by Ridley Scott's going to be good, and I think
you have way misplaced faith in Ridley Scott in 2021.
I want to see House of Gucci.
Yeah, that's on the list. That's on our triple feature for January, along with Spencer and The Eyes of Tammy Faye. In any case, I think, look, it's not going to win the weekend. It's one of those, again, it's a prestige picture. It's not one that's going to draw a huge crowd, but it'll be out there for the adults who don't want to go see a Disney movie and don't like horror movies. And that is kind of your audience split. Your general audience that's going to make thing #1 is going to go see Encanto. Your horror fans who don't have children to go see Resident Evil, and your snooty, film people are all going to go see House of Gucci. At which point, no one will be seeing Ghostbusters, and that'll be the end of that.
Even fewer people seeing the Eternals by then,
and nobody will be seeing Eternals.
Even
I might just pull it out of the theater by then.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Paul Rudd will buy out one theater in good faith because he's a Marvel guy for the Eternals, and then he will buy 2 out for the Ghostbusters. Because
West Side Story comes out December 10th. That'll be your #1 movie of that weekend.
That's fairly bold prediction on your part.
I believe it to be true.
Again, the competition with West Side Story is the Kurt Warner story.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I agree with Mark. I think West Side Story is going to do better than that one does.
Yeah,
and Spielberg.
And then Spider-Man's going to, speaking of Moab, Spider-Man's going to drop a bomb on the theater. Everyone on Earth will be going to see Spider-Man. You want to talk about bold predictions? I think if one movie is going to somehow make it to $1 billion this year, it'll be that one.
Agreed.
I actually do agree with that.
Yeah, that's not going to be a Moab. That's going to be a nuke. And hey, credit on Eternals for showing the Gimbaku Dome at Hiroshima. That building's still there.
A movie we'll be reviewing, but nobody will be seeing, will be Nightmare Alley.
But look, that scene with him in the aftermath of the atomic bomb, one does raise a big question about how close they were to it.
Yeah, it's like, man, you're here pretty close.
And then finally,
I just assumed Eternals were safe from radiation.
Well, still, the heat of that explosion would have caused massive problem. Like that was a weird choice.
So here's a interesting question for you.
Also needed bodies.
So you have Spider-Man coming out this December 17th, which we all just agreed was going to do gangbusters. Even if it ends up not being great, people will go see it. Everyone goes to see Spider-Man. The problem is,
I mean, I wouldn't if I wasn't reviewing it, but I'll be.
Not even a week later, you've got Kingsman, Sing 2, and The Matrix, and each one of those has a plus and a minus to it. Kingsman is rated R, so no family. Sing is rated G or PG, so all the families, and The Matrix is on HBO Max. How do you think? My question to you, Robert, and then Alexis and David for yes, no, maybe so. Do you think any one of those upsets Spider-Man in its second week as the #1 movie, or does Spider-Man go 2 and 3 weeks at the #1 spot? What say you, Robert? And then we'll end this conversation.
I think of those 3, Sing probably has the best chance.
Mm-hmm.
Family movie
because of the general audience thing, and people liked the first Sing.
Mm-hmm.
We have no idea why.
Pop music and cute animals.
Yeah, what do you mean we have no idea why? Children, pop music, and cute animals.
Have you seen the latest posters for Sing 2? They actually have the actors who play the roles, and they have them casting shadows of their characters. It's like, I know that banking on celebrity voices in an animated movie is nothing new, but that takes it to a whole new level of WTF.
It might be the most cynically produced series of movies ever, but
My
it
kids
works.
love the shit out of the first thing. Like, of the last couple of Illumination movies that have been big hits, The Secret Life of Pets, Minions / Despicable Me, Sing, I think the one that they liked the most actually was Sing, and it was because of the music.
Yeah,
Look,
I just like what is the plot of Sing? It's like, well, have you ever seen a movie about musicians? It's all of them.
We have to save the theater, don't you understand?
And, we have to get
And my dad
song.
doesn't approve of my singing career, and I want to escape from my life as a housewife and get a singing career.
So
But I
your
want to make the money.
So your answer is you think Sing wins that weekend and knocks Spider-Man down to number one?
No. I said I think of those three, Sing has the best shot.
Mm-hmm.
If Matrix were exclusively in theaters,
Right.
I actually might lean towards the Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
Though I'd be banking pretty heavily on nostalgia for that because I think the movie looks like ass.
Yeah, let me tell you something. I have zero interest in seeing another Matrix movie for a variety of reasons, which I will not get into now. But I will tell you, this is one of the weird movies, and I know I've been really negative on the whole trailer react culture. This is one of those where if someone had asked me, "What did you think of the trailer for Matrix Resurrections?" I love it. I love their use of White Rabbit, and I get excited for the movie just watching that trailer. It's one of the few examples of a trailer legitimately getting me excited for a movie until I remember it's The Matrix, and I'm like, no, fuck this shit. David?
Okay, yeah, I agree. Sing being a family movie has the biggest chance of giving Spider-Man a run for its money. Again, there's a lot of overlap between the two, but yeah, Sing would skew younger, so you could even take the little kids to the theater and have a break from small children for 2 hours or whatever. I forget what option 3 was.
The Matrix. Well, Kingsman won't, but
Kingsman. Kingsman
comes out that weekend.
Yeah, Kingsman has a fan base,
Allegedly.
But yeah, I don't think it would be enough to really, seat the power of family films, and it would be R-rated as well.
I don't even think it cracked the top 5 in its opening weekend. Because of Spider-Man, Nightmare Alley, Sing, and Matrix.
It might be number 5, but I don't think it would hit.
Yeah, it might do okay, but yeah, I don't see it as being a big hit at that time. Like you say, between Sing 2 and Spider-Man, I think those will gobble it the most. And yeah, Matrix, I would say, is probably going to come in last of those because one, it's available on streaming, so may as well stream it. And I'm not really sure how many people care that much about the Matrix now. There's still a lot of bad will over the 2 sequels.
I don't know why this got greenlit. Alexis, your final thoughts on whether or not Spider-Man can three-peat or gets defeated in its second weekend?
I have no doubt it's going to three-peat. Sing.
Alexa, stop! You were saying, madam?
When are you going to remember to unplug that stupid thing?
I'm about ready to throw a brick through it. Please continue.
I say Spider-Man three-peats. I honestly do not think Sing 2 is going to do well enough to come close to that. I am intrigued by Kingsman. I actually do want to see it. I saw the previous 2 in theaters. I've got the first one on DVD. I love it. Matrix, definitely want to see, but again, when you have it on streaming service at the same time, I think that is going to be an issue. But also, it should be noted that early reviews for the Matrix movie have not yet said whether or not this is a film that can be saved if you go see it in IMAX. When Dune was first released out, everyone said, yeah, it's available on streaming, but do yourself a favor, go see it in theaters. Looks
they
much
were
better
right.
on theaters. Yes, they were right.
I actually think Dune had a good second week because a lot of people who might have seen it on streaming went, I want to see this in theaters now, and then went to go see it.
See, I saw it in theaters, and to which I said, now I need to go home and watch it on HBO Max with subtitles so I know what the hell they're saying. But unless we get early reviews for Matrix Resurrections that say the same thing, that say, oh, go see this on the big screen, visually you have to see it on IMAX. Unless we get that, I don't see it raking in that much.
Yeah, I feel like the Matrix Resurrections is going to be a lot of people going, I can't wait to watch this at home. And with that said, here we are with the critical review.
Are you ready? No! I said Are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
The critical review on Rotten Tomatoes was brought to you by Grammarly. Grammarly's AI powered helps people communicate more effectively. Grammarly helps you get mistake-free on Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and nearly anywhere else you write on the web. Grammarly corrects hundreds of grammar, punctuation, and spelling mistakes while also catching contextual errors, improving your vocabulary, and suggesting style improvements. To download Grammarly today, go to getgrammarly.com/W2M Network. Again, it's getgrammarly.com/W2M Network to download Grammarly for free. All righty. I usually look forward to this.
Oh, don't
Not.
you, though. Don't
I'm
you
not-
just.
I think we can cut this one short.
You know, I'm willing to talk to. Here's the thing, and this is the kind of conversation I got into with Alexis. I can listen to any number of general audience for amateurs such as us say, I like this, didn't like that, whatever, and that's fine. I don't invalidate, Alexis or Robert's opinion because they disagreed with me. We're here to have a fun conversation among friends, and we like what we like, and we know a degree about film enough to speak about it relatively intelligently. But let's remember that we are amateurs at this. We are fans having a fun conversation.
We are not featured on the vaunted halls.
We're not paid for this. We are not paid. This is what I was saying in the chat, and I'll repeat it here, and because I need to get this out. You are paid critic. Being a critic is a particular talent. And there's a particular way of doing it that is the reason you're paid for it as a professional. There is a difference between neckbeard on YouTube saying Eternals is woke and I hate it, and that being a valid, if not stupid, way of looking at a film. But that person is also doing that as a hobby and is just giving their opinion. That's
Depends
not
on how big they are on YouTube. That can be
that
a
is
very
not
lucrative
valid
career.
professional criticism. I'm bored is not valid professional criticism. This isn't fun for me. This isn't fun like the previous Marvel movies. Isn't valid professional criticism. There's the difference. You want to say, I'm bored, this isn't fun, I wish this had been Ragnarok. Okay, but you better be saying that as your personal opinion in a forum where you're not being paid to do it. Does that make sense, Robert? Okay.
I think that was just being used as an example, as in this movie is very much not Ragnarok.
Also, it was liked by a lot of people. That's why I use it as an example.
He did that on purpose.
Validate what I just said so we can move this on.
Now, look, it's one thing to say I was bored by this movie. I mean, I think some of us were.
Sure.
I was going to say, I think Robert and I both did say we were bored by this movie.
The difference is, if you're going to be a professional critic, you should at least be able to articulate why you were bored and how the movie failed in that particular respect. Again, which I'd like to think I did, because the repetitive, uninteresting nature of that script.
You did. Everyone got it, and you were able to do that. My problem with what we're going to dig into now, just a little bit, because as David said, no one wants to do this forever, is that a lot of these people just let it, just kind of put it out there in the world. I was bored, this isn't fun, and thought that was valid enough to leave it at that. And I'm like, nope, you have now failed miserably at your job.
Yeah, 100%.
46% from the paid critics, 80% from the unpaid rank amateur general movie going audience.
For the record, that 80% is still the lowest MCU score.
Critic consensus: an ambitious superhero epic that soars as often as it strains. Eternals takes the MCU in intriguing and occasionally confounding new directions. I kind of agree with that, actually. The audience says it's a different kind of Marvel movie, but Eternals still contains all the action, humor, and heart the fans are looking for. Where in the
world did you find heart in this movie?
Where did you find humor? I mean, I understand Kingo had a couple of good lines in there. Yeah, there was a couple of good. I think I mentioned this on the Bleeding Edge, in that there were some moments that, I chuckled. There was a couple of cue. It's like, that's kind of funny. But there was no moment where I actually was like holding my sides laughing.
Most of the humor was on display in the trailer.
Hey, Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat says, Robert Winfree and Alexis Hejna, fuck you. The long and
I'm sure he does.
The long and short of it is that, yes, we have no bananas. And Eternals is a colossal bore. For those lacking patience, heart, and imagination.
It must be nice not to have any smell when you fart.
You're not kidding.
Robert, you want to flip this guy off, or should I?
Go for it. I already got Mark.
It's like, look, I liked the movie, and I thought it was somewhat smart relatively, but I wouldn't say that if you didn't like this movie, it's because you're some sort of impatient moron.
If you, sir, want to have a discussion about the necessity of patience in film watching, watch Too Old to Die Young and get back to me if you don't off yourself. Dick.
For the record, I've never said that if you like this movie, you're an idiot. I can understand why some people like this movie. I just didn't get into it. I'm sorry.
I wasn't trying to imply that was my opinion.
To be clear, I've never had a problem with you not liking it. You know, it's my problems come in when someone tries to pass off subjective criticism as objective, and that's where I start pulling what's left of my hair out.
I tend to think most people enjoyed this because of Marvel Stockholm Syndrome.
You ain't kidding there. Kent Garrison of
Right Variety, right?
It's coming across worse than the people who are saying, how dare you not like My Little Pony A New Generation when you liked My Little Pony Friendship is Magic.
They're
the
two
Stockholm
different
Syndrome
shows.
is real.
Yeah.
It must be nice not to have any
We've
problems
done
in
all
your
of
life.
one of these. Kent Garrison, mad about movie podcasts, Robert. He's simply mad about them. Don't you understand?
Yeah, sure.
Chloé Zhao deals with real-world themes. Like a giant space monster erupting from the core of the planet.
I mean, Mark, I had one try to come out of my garden just last week. It was terrible. Like, they had to shut down the road. I was late for work. I mean, geez.
Yeah, I think
I can't tell you how lovely it was to watch heroes dealing with the same kinds of issues that I deal with on a daily basis.
I mean, just last week, my dad called me to tell me I was really an immortal alien robot that had my mind wiped every 5,000 years.
Yeah, I was going to say, did this show up in a Dear Abby column? My husband and I haven't spoken to each other in literally 1,500 years.
We've been calling Robert a space alien robot for years now, but that's hardly the issue here.
True.
Chloé Zhao deals with real-world themes that resonate now and will only resonate more as the MCU continues to evolve.
You, sir, could not see daylight from how far your head is up the MCU's
I
ass.
genuinely do not get... Seriously, can someone inform me what real-world issues he's talking about? Because I have no idea what he's
not being paid by Marvel Studios to write ad copy. I don't know who is.
He's desperately auditioning for that job.
I was going to say, so did we just find our first Tick Bird review of the night?
We might have. Eric Kane of Forbes. I really enjoyed Eternals despite it being too long, and one of the reasons was the humor. Another was just that it felt kind of quirky and different from most of the Marvel movies these days.
How was this? Hold on.
I wouldn't call it quirky.
How did you get to quirky in this?
Yeah,
I will give you different. And if your argument is it being a different enough Marvel movie was enough to carry it for your personal enjoyment, Godspeed and party on, man. I don't know where you get quirky.
All right,
or funny.
This is a fun one. Aaron, this is actually rotten, but I'm going to mix these up and just to read the ones that amuse me. Aaron Dicer of Sift Pop.
I read this. This is funny.
Yeah, Marvel is the peanut butter of movies. Zhao is the filet mignon of directors. And I just wasn't fully enjoying my peanut butter steak.
Stretch that metaphor any further, buddy, and it might turn into taffy.
Actually, it's not a bad metaphor. I just not sure it applies to this movie.
It's no. Like I'm probably going to try and repurpose that at some point, but
I think that's actually one of the best reviews so far.
Yeah, I think he gets a stay of execution. Like that was actually some decent effort put in.
I honestly read that because it amused the hell out of me.
Oh, go ahead, Mark. This has been a common sentiment. Read old Edwin there.
Yep, Edwin Arnaudin of Asheville Movies, the MCU's first DCEU film.
God,
not inaccurate. This has more in common with the theatrical Justice League movie than anything that Marvel did.
Ouch!
Well, of course it does. Chloé Zhao repeatedly said she was inspired by Man of Steel. She wanted to follow Zack Snyder's footprints.
Pity they didn't find a decent actor and a compelling way to write Superman.
Okay. So Candace McMillan, Seattle Refined. Oh, it's refined, Robert.
Yeah,
like
because
brandy.
when I think of being refined, I definitely think of Seattle.
Oh, with its waves of heroin. Director Chloé Zhao is in the mouth of the Marvel beast with this one.
Oh, God.
It can devour even the most able-eyed filmmaker, which is exactly what Eternal does. Yes, much like the story that broke today about her directing a Star Wars movie, Chloé Zhao taken prisoner by Michael Chapek over at Disney and forced against her will to shoot movies for the mouse. Someone save her.
Poor Chloé Zhao getting paid money to do her job.
Have they forgotten that Zhao actually came to Marvel and started this work long before No Man Land won its awards?
Can we
Apparently.
also just say good directors make bad movies all the time? She's not infallible, you morons. You could not tell. I don't think if you went back to 1977 and had to tell the film-going audience that the creator of The Godfather would crash and burn so spectacularly once we got to the 80s, no one would have believed you. Like, there's no way Francis Ford Coppola is capable of this spectacular failures. I've got reality for you. It happens.
Pretty sure even Spielberg has made a few films that we're all going, yeah, let's forget you ever touched that, shall we?
The BFG.
I was going with Munich.
Munich could have been worse. Look, don't make me say it, because I will if I have to.
Say it.
Indiana Jones 4.
Oh, I thought you were going to go with the one with the Ministry soundtrack. Oh, God. AI, that was it.
AI was just Spielberg doing a bad Kubrick impression.
Terrific.
Okay, guys, with all respect, do not touch AI. That is a can of worms that we do not have time to discuss.
I'm trying
tonight.
not to, kid.
Moving on.
Kid,
Thanks for the input.
Once again, quote Star Wars. John Urbansich of JM Movies, spelled with a U. Woo-hoo! Like the U-tray. Even acclaimed filmmaker Chloé Zhao, who collected Best Picture and Director Oscars for last year's Nomadland, that we reviewed.
Because an important part of your review of this movie is her resume.
Can't save her first venture into the MC universe from being laughable too often in all the wrong places. Okay,
disagree. Also, we really should have saved the Grammarly ad for his website title.
Andy Klein of Film Week doesn't like his job and would prefer to do something else. I wish somebody would give a map to exit the Marvel universe at some point. I feel like I was lost in a made-up world I did not particularly care about.
Okay, hang on. Well, I agree with your sentiment, sir, and I don't like some of what has become of the film industry in no small part because of the MCU and its success. If your gripe is about the state of filmmaking, gripe about the state of filmmaking in a state of filmmaking blog post, not in a review of this movie, because that assumes facts well not in evidence.
Yeah. Well,
Actually, I hate to say it, this guy does bring up an interesting point, though. This film does feel like it's the least connected from the MCU as a whole. It has the least amount of Marvel Easter eggs. It has the least amount of ties back to other Marvel movies. Do you guys think this film would have been better, worse, or somewhere in the middle if they had tried harder in the script or in the directing? I don't know where this would work better, but somewhere to try to tie it back into the MCU a little bit more.
I don't think so. I think visually, it's obviously we've seen Celestials before, like in Guardians of the Galaxy, we saw one. So, and just the way the Eternals are set up, I think it kind of works at this point to be their own thing. I'm sure from now on, if they use them more, we'll start to see them interact more with the broader MCU. I would assume that the whole, Celestial Judgment thing will be of interest to the Avengers or whatever new Avengers they come up with.
Right. Two or three more of these, then we'll be done. Mark Kermode of Kermode and Mayo's Film Review, top critic. And if I could just do my my moment of whining on this podcast about
just before you do that, I just say the map to exit the Marvel Cinematic Universe is don't go and see the movies.
Well, again, professional critic. I mean,
that's his problem. Welcome to the job of a professional critic. Yes, you don't have to do this job if you don't want it.
Mark Kermode of Kermode and Mayo's Film Critic, top critic, and I don't know what justice there is in this world with this guy's a top critic on here, and we don't even get to be on Rotten Tomatoes. But here we go. I certainly can't get emotionally invested anymore. It's just a series of special effects interspersed with a bit of humor. How? Why? What? Who's paying you for this?
Again, Chloé Zhao worked her ass off to make sure that there was as little CGI as possible.
Yeah, I think of all the big Marvel movies that you're going to complain about an abundance of CGI, this isn't the one to die on. This isn't the one to hang that argument on. Black
Guardians
Widow, yes. Spider-Man.
Guardians of the Galaxy, Black Panther.
Yeah, like the upcoming Spider-Man movie is going to be almost entirely digital. Like,
Abby
just look at
Alexis
it.
of The Pitch. Unfortunately, the film's strict adherence to the Marvel formula keeps the whole enterprise from really working.
You don't understand the Marvel formula.
You wrote that months ago.
Didn't we already discuss how this film tries its hardest not to follow the Marvel formula?
I mean, it does in places, but yeah, it does deviate more than most.
That's mostly because there's a handful of places where the Marvel formula overlaps with just the 3-act structure of storytelling.
So you know how I like to relate Robert to a variety of critics? You know, this one's his granddad.
Do, and it annoys me.
Yes, and this one's his wife. I feel like I need to share the love, and I want to preface this so that you don't misunderstand what it is I'm doing here. I am poking at your nipples the way that I poke at Robert's nipples. Here we go. Alexis Hejna's boyfriend, Doug Walker of Channel Awesome.
Ooh, you take that back.
Mark doesn't hang on. Mark doesn't know any better. Just let it go.
I made a keychain once for Brad Jones, and now all of a sudden,
I wasn't referring to anything specific. I just know that you once said you liked him, and now I won't let that go.
Yes, I watched Nostalgia Critic.
Didn't we all at one time?
So did I.
Like an X-Men movie, if all the characters were Cyclops. Fuck you, Doug Walker. Fuck you.
This explains why I don't watch the Nostalgia Critic anymore.
1, yes. 2, if all he's talking about is the cinematic Cyclops, who is himself a cardboard cutout because the writers didn't understand the character, you're not wrong.
I don't agree with that assessment, first of all. We just went over saying how only a handful of characters were cardboard cutouts. The rest of them had personalities.
I didn't touch that argument out of respect for your requested timeline, not because I agreed with you.
Fair enough. James Vernier of Boston Herald. Chloé Zhao has succumbed to corporate filmmaking anonymity.
Oh, bite me. You write for the Boston Herald and have the temerity to stand there and argue that this director is sold out. You flaming hypocrite, go play in traffic.
There's always at least one jackass who believes that when you agree to work for Disney, you have no soul.
Kurt Loder, formerly of MTV, Robert. Kurt Loder, formerly of MTV, Robert. Kurt Loder, formerly of MTV,
How is he still alive?
now also writing for Reason Magazine, but in this case, Creator Syndicate.
Because we've never met.
Too many C-team superheroes.
Thanks, Chris Bailey, is that you?
Hang on. In fairness to the point he is making, he's not wrong. Marvel is going to have this problem with a just total glut of characters teaming up that no one really cares about or has heard of, and they're trying to sell us. And this is what's going to erode their goodwill with the fan base.
I finally found one that when I was doing a lot of this prep Friday night when I got home, Thursday night when I got home from the movie, that's where I saw the first crop of reviews that were like, I didn't have fun, and I was wanting to throw my phone across the room. So here's one of those, and then we can stop this. Tom Santilli of Movie Show Plus. Eternals is the least fun I've ever had in an MCU film.
Look, I appreciate your blog post, but that's not criticism.
Actually, I'm reading the one above there with, the one where you got the mouse, Ruth Maramus. I just read hers. That actually, I think, is a good review right there. And well, at least that's one I agree with the most.
Oh, no.
What?
Do it, Mark. He's right there. Just scroll back up and do it.
Oh, Robert Winfree's granddad, Joe Morgenstern of the Wall Street Journal, top critic. Director Chloé Zhao does more than well enough, even though the story stretched out of 157 minutes is rambling and repetitive. See?
How is that a tomato?
I think that's a poor pullout from that review.
Yeah.
But look, anything, first of all, we all mentioned this. The runtime for this is atrocious.
Yeah. Hey, really the last one here. Luis Martinez of El Mundo from Spain. The saddest superhero movie. Apparently you never saw The Watchmen.
There's so many superhero movies this idiot didn't see.
Yeah.
Clearly.
All right, folks.
Look, Catwoman drove people to suicide.
I defended that. And I'll be re-airing it this February for Black History Month.
You did, and I appreciate your commitment to the format of that show, but there is no justification for that film.
She dribbles a basketball nicely. Hey, you leave Best Actress winning actor Halle Berry alone.
Hey,
You want to try that again, Mark?
Nope.
You want to have a fun bit of reality slapped in your face, Mark?
Not really, but go ahead.
Halle Berry's washed up.
Well, we can talk more about that when Moonfall comes out next year.
You mean no? You mean we can talk about that in a couple of weeks when we talk about Bruised?
Oh, that's true. All right, folks, that
washed up.
Our review of Eternal, such as it was. Hey, we managed to get this in under 2 hours, and to really drive that home,
we were only half the runtime of this movie.
Check out the Radulich Broadcasting Network on W2Mnet.com. That's our website. We're on all your available podcatchers, iTunes, Apple Music, whatever it's called these days, Spotify, and everywhere else you can find us. We live stream on Twitch. We have a YouTube. It's all W2Mnet.com and all of those places. Like, subscribe, and you'll get notified whenever we have a new show. We drop several a day between my stuff, Sean Garmer's soccer and video games podcast. Plus, we've had a guy doing the League of Legends stuff the past couple of weeks.
This year's League of Legends Worlds tournament just concluded with an upset win by Edward Gaming over Damwon Kia. Bit of a surprise. I thought Showmaker was going to get back to back, but
so Brian Alvarez has been documenting all of that for us. Plus, we've got football, boxing. We just did Canelo versus Plant. Robert Winfree will be doing a solo podcast of Demetrius Andrade versus Daniel Quigley.
Why do you lie to the people, Mark?
There it is. So anyway, so check us out. Alexis Hejna, I hear you make...
I'm still not convinced Demetrius Andrade is a real person.
I hear you paint houses and make jewelry.
No, right. I hire people to paint my house. Thank you very much.
I hear you paint houses as a euphemism for hired killing.
Mark, no one saw The Irishman, and those who did are now stuck in the time loop you and I managed to avoid.
I saw The Irishman, and I've already blanked most of it from my memory.
But what do you sell, madam?
Yes, Honeysuckle Rose Creations, where fashion meets fandom at the intersection of geek and chic. We make handmade jewelry upcycled out of game pieces. We are getting ready for Black Friday. Everything in both of our Etsy and Handmade at Amazon stores is going to be 20% off. And this is also kicking off our annual holiday charity drive. We do this every year, starting from Black Friday to Christmas Eve. Every order that is placed in our store, for every order, we will donate $5 to St. Jude. We do this every year. Always love, helping out St. Jude. So if you're interested, go ahead and take a look at our stuff again on Etsy and Handmade at Amazon. We are putting out a disclaimer right now, unfortunately, that while we will be making and shipping everything on time as directed in our store, we are seeing some delays in the actual shipping that from situations that is completely out of our control. We're looking at staffing issues due to the COVID pandemic and such through the post office and likewise. So if you are at all concerned, go ahead and place your orders early so this will not be an issue. We don't want to have someone worried about whether or not they're going to get their items on time for a gift for the holidays. As always, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. That's Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic.
Do you have 2 or 3 more players for your Disney trivia that will be airing on the Radulich Broadcasting Network on November 28th?
Recording on the 20th.
Yes, we're airing on the 28th.
Yeah.
Do you have more players?
I need to double check with Jesse about that. He's been kind of busy. I've been kind of busy. We haven't gone back to it, and I realized that we're dividing up the questions. We will be covering Disney parks, Disney movies, and Disney TV shows. But I realized that I'm doing the second round. He's doing the first round. I'm like, maybe we should actually collaborate and make sure we're not asking the same questions.
5 questions about Snow White. All right, yeah. So as you mentioned, we're going to record. My wife is going to play on that show, and they're looking for more contestants, I assume. That records on November 20th. If anyone's interested in Disney trivia,
I could probably swing it.
There you go. You want to play with my wife?
Phrasing, Mark.
I've warned him about this several times.
Why start now? All right. Speaking of playing, go ahead, Robert. What are you playing at these days? No,
sorry,
please don't answer me literally, you fucking robot.
I'm not going to. Look, I was just scrolling through my Facebook feed, and one of my favorite Simpsons non sequiturs just showed up, and I'm trying not to bust out laughing.
I would have just said your wife, but okay.
You would have, but that's you.
The door was opened.
No, it's behind Mark, and it's still
Oh
very
my
close.
God!
No, I just wanted that
He writes
reaction.
for 401 Mania. Check out his horrible wrestling,
Hang on.
and halfway decent MMA coverage.
Hey. I'm
Mark, where's the
loosely-
get on with it clip?
I'm getting there.
Look, I'm partially offended by that. My wrestling coverage is not horrible, and you know it.
Okay, I'm sorry. 1,000 pardons.
It's not great, but it's
Oh,
not horrible.
Jesus Christ!
Do it.
So, Loki.
Wrong one. Do it again.
God damn it.
I'm going to make you do it again.
I'm looking for it. Where did they put this goddamn thing? There it is.
With it. Yes, get on with it.
Now that you finally found the right clip, we can in fact get on with it. As Mark mentioned, I write for 411mania.com. 3 times a week, I cover professional wrestling against my will. AEW's Dark Elevation on Monday, MLW Fusion on Wednesday, and WWE SmackDown on Fridays. So if you're interested in my thoughts on that, please come by, say hello. I appreciate it. I cover mixed martial arts action on Saturdays. This week, Max Holloway fights Yair Rodriguez. Not a great supporting cast, but that should be a halfway decent fight. I think it's the last fight on Max's deal, so that raises some interesting questions.
All right.
I also host the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast. If you're interested in mixed martial arts, give that a listen. This last week, I reviewed UFC 268, which was a banger card, start to finish. Nothing but hits. Well, there was a crappy heavyweight fight, but it featured a fat man hitting a wheel kick to knock out his opponent. So I'll take it.
Hey, this Saturday, David's final Star Trek retrospective will be airing, and we're lining that up with the debut of Star Trek Discovery Season 4. So check out myself and Robert screaming about the Beastie Boys for 2 hours, and Dave
Beastie
for
Boys
10
suck.
minutes, and Dave for 10 minutes wanting to talk about the Kelvin movies.
Assume-
that was about the ratio?
I assume
Not quite, but
I assume there was a lot of cutting of us yelling about the Beastie Boys.
not as much as you would think. But I made it work. But yeah,
All right.
that's coming out soon. I think I'm on Cowboy Bebop.
Yep.
Might be the next thing I'm on here. And yeah, Eternals. For all you people out there complaining that Marvel movies are just big, dumb action movies, well, it is big. Good news, it's not dumb. Bad news, it's also not an action movie.
And with
Not
that,
wrong.
be well, be safe, and behave.